I'm Mike Graham.
And I'm Brian Navarrete, and we're with the Lone Star Varsity High School sports staff.
I want to appreciate everyone for coming in and watching this show tonight. It's brought to you by the University Medical Center and powered by our friends at AJ Media. And a good slate of games for Week 7, but it all starts on Thursday night with a non-district game. Still a couple of teams in non-district. Estacado, of course, belongs to a 4-team district, so they have another week to go. And pretty hard-pressed to find a team, so they've brought in Clint Mountain View from the El Paso area to visit Lowry Field on a Thursday night. And I heard that the Mountain View kids are going to school on Friday.
Oh, wow. That's going to be a tough turnaround. But, yeah, it might be hard to find a district or a non-district opponent right now because we have a lot of good teams starting up some district on Friday. And one of the biggest one, or I guess one of the bigger ones we'll kind of get into a little bit later, but Estacado versus Mountain View. What do you kind of take away from this game?
Well, you know, Estacado, they've got 3 players day-to-day. Dre Conright's a really good cornerback, and he got banged up a little bit, probably the least severe in a really good win against Shallow Water, 42-20 last week. The big one, I think, for them is Kamadrick Williams, a running back who's averaging more than 100 yards per game, part of a 1-2 tandem, and receiver Ashton Williams, who caught for more than 100 yards per week. They both, I think, went down with leg injuries. Coach Marcus Shavers considers them day-to-day. So we'll see what happens. But what I do know about Mountain View is that Jeremiah Dobbins, a sophomore running back, is healthy and ran for more than 200 yards last week against a good Shallow Water team. So I think that they've got the pieces here to get this done. Going up against a 2-3 Mountain View team, which lost to Denver City last week 20-14, and only averaging about 25.2 points per game. Estacado's averaging a lot more than that.
Yeah, it's good to have that secondary running back, or not secondary, because these were both starters that were, kind of trading in on different downs and, on different series, and they were both producing really well. If you combine them in any game, they were over 200, and I'm not just saying over, 200, 220, over 250,
right?
Over more than that even. And Jeremiah Dobbins is a good running back to have there for them, and they might not see any loss of productivity with him kind of stepping in. He might be a little bit more exercised or utilized than he has been in the past, but I think he's up for the challenge.
That's right. It's going to be a good stretch game for him, and this is a player that Coach Shavers thinks has a college future. And you can see it. I mean, averaging 200 yards as a sophomore back, and he was a starter. It was supposed to be him and Seth Porter in the backfield, and Kamadrick's really been the surprise. So hopefully he'll be available, but if not, I think they'll find a workaround for that. Bo Sims is a quarterback who could also get into the running game. Scored twice last week on short runs. I'm sure they could, utilize him on a couple of draw plays or maybe even just some straight up runs.
He's a big kid. If you look at him, he's got the height and he's got the legs to make some big things happen. And sometimes I think some defenses take that for granted. They immediately start rushing and think if maybe they can get him out of the pocket, then he's not going to be so comfortable. But he's got the legs to get in the end zone himself, and he's got the height to lay it out there if he needs to. So as far as Estacado goes going into this one, they might be down 2, maybe 3 players, but they have a lot of players that can step up into those roles that are, conditioned just as well and may have same level of talent and just kind of waiting on their turn to come out and showcase those abilities. But Clint Mountain View, I think they're going to have a tough one with Estacado. Estacado is just playing its best football right now.
Yeah, and just on the defensive side, I mean, this is a Mountain View team that runs at about a 2-to-1 ratio is where it's getting its yardage. Running against Royce Wellington and Malachi Peppers and a couple of good linebackers. It's a really tough front. And you've seen this front. What do you make of the front? And I guess the defense as a whole, because it seems like they have a size advantage kind of compared to everyone else in 4A Division I, especially out in this part of 4A Division I.
They do have a size advantage against most of their opponents. When you look across the line, you just see big bodies that are able to plug up holes, get around the edges, and really disrupt some things in the backfield. I think they have one of the better defensive lines that I've seen so far this year. You don't see any loss in height or weight whenever you're kind of switching people out, and their linebackers just rush to the ball. And these aren't your run-of-the-mill linebackers. These linebackers, some of them sit at over 6 foot, 200 pounds, still running a 4.5. It's like getting hit by a bowling ball almost.
Absolutely. Couple of good games on Friday, and I think one of the more intriguing ones, despite the records, are Lubbock High visiting Lubbock Cooper. Lubbock High 1-4, hasn't won since week 1, going up against a Cooper team that's looked pretty good, especially on the defensive side of the ball. But maybe there's more to this game than meets the eye.
Yeah, I think Lubbock High, this is your first district game for both teams. for the Westerners and for the Pirates. So if there was ever a point to kind of turn it on and really come out swinging, it's right now. You want the win before you get into district, but even now more so than ever, you want to come out and you want to play your best football. And I think that's what Lubbock High is going to bring to the table. But again, Lubbock Cooper defensively, as they've been in the past and as they've been this season, they've been defensively sound, and I think it's going to be a tough one for the Westerners.
Absolutely. You've got some good skill players for Lubbock High. Think about Christian Jimenez, thinking about Isaiah Johnson at running back. But this should be by far the best defense that they've seen. Lubbock Cooper sometimes hasn't had that offensive spark. It seems like they're starting to get it. They committed to a quarterback, Brendan Mell, and things look like they're turning around. And it's been a while since we've seen them. They've had 2 weeks to work on things. But we do know for sure the defense keeps Cooper in ball games.
When you say that this might be the best defense that Lubbock High has faced, my mind went immediately to Estacado and what they tried to do with Estacado. Estacado has a really good defense too. It might be on the same par as Cooper's. Cooper might have a little bit more experienced players at their positions right now at this point of the year, but in this one, I believe against Estacado, Lubbock High was trying to wear them out with the run game. We'll see how they approach Cooper this time around, but they've already had that experience playing up against a really sound defense. So I think Lubbock High might pull a few tricks out of its bags and be able to get on the scoreboard in this one. But Lubbock Cooper's offense, like you were saying, has found its strength in the last couple of weeks, and they know how to win football games.
And it's so exciting that the District 4-5A is beginning at large, because we've been talking about this for a long time, and I think there's a possibility that the magic number to reach the playoffs here is 2 wins, as long as you win the 2 correct games. Last year it took 3 wins to get out of this district, but that was because Cooper and Abilene Cooper tied with 3-2 records. So I mean, if their head-to-head game had gone different, someone would have gotten in with 2 wins, and I think that's what Lubbock High's gunning for. And I think you look at Coronado, you look at Abilene Cooper, you look at Monterey. I mean, they're going to have to win one of those, I think, to make the playoffs. In addition to beating Lakeview, which it looks like they're on pace to do. This game could be very big for them and their playoff chances.
It can, and those teams that you just listed off played some of their best football at this time of year last year in district. So Lubbock High is going to have to really step it up. But the first step to doing that in return is beating Cooper, getting that first one. But the point we keep coming back to is Cooper is a very seasoned team. They have their leaders, and it's going to be a tough hill for Lubbock High to overcome.
The other Cooper is in Lubbock this week. They're playing Monterey at the 8 p.m. game in Lowry Field. Coronado will be playing Lakeview at 4 p.m. at Lowry Field on Friday. This is the 8 p.m. game, and I think it's the most intriguing large school game on the schedule. You've got a Monterey team that got a second wind after a couple of heartbreaks earlier in the season, went to Stephenville. Brylan Lawson-Young ran the ball really well, scored 2 touchdowns. Briley Alexander, the kicker, he had 2 field goals, didn't miss a PAT, continued to add on to the case that he's the most valuable special teams player out here and worthy of a scholarship, perhaps. And then you've got Cooper, which is very explosive. Quarterback Ender Freeman passed 1,300 passing yards this year, and then a running back at 806. So he's just barely off pace to not make 2,000 yards this season in the regular season. Yeah,
the 2 Coopers, and I'm just retracking a little bit. The 2 Coopers definitely made this district interesting last year, and it looks like Abilene Cooper picked up right where it left off last year, and if not improved from last year. You named the players already offensively. Defensively, they've been able to hold off some opponents. Monterey, you had mentioned it last week, and I really like what you had said about Monterey, is that whenever they start firing off on all cylinders, and of course I'm paraphrasing, but whenever they start firing off on all cylinders, Monterey becomes a whole different team than what we may have seen in their first couple of games.
Totally agree with you. And both teams have impressive bodies of work. You didn't think Odessa was going to be that great at the beginning of the year. That was a winless team, but they're doing quite well. Ran into Midland Lee, ran into Stephenville. Now, I'd make an argument with you that Abilene Cooper has the better non-district of the 2, and they went 4-1 versus Monterey's 2-3. It's Abilene, Keller, Grapevine beat Friendship 62-3 before suffering their first loss 2 weeks ago in the non-district finale to Austin Bowie 35-34. So that's a pretty decent body of work.
It is, and it's going to take everything Monterey has to hold off that offense and produce offensively. The good news is they do have the players to make it interesting.
Exactly. You've got a really good pass rush from Monterey. That was something that worked in their favor to a 14-14 score with Midland Lee in week 3 at halftime. Of course, Midland got their running game rolling in the second half and kind of wore down that front. But you could see that Monterey has a good front that can get pressure. I think that's important. We talked about single points of failure last week a lot with the Andrews quarterback.
Yeah.
Kind of like Ender Freeman. Here's the guy with the majority of their offensive production. If you can rattle him a little bit, life sure does get easier for you.
Yeah, and when we were talking about Estacado's line, I think Monterey's kind of came into my mind as well. And maybe we don't talk about them enough and the pressure they're able to kind of put on their opponents. But all around, I think this is going to be a good game. I think it's going to be a lot closer than maybe some people might think coming into it. But, yeah, definitely an interesting one.
And then this is your game on Friday. And, I think we talked about the best large school game. I think this is the best overall game. Sundown at Abernathy, 2 5-0 teams to kick off the 2A Division I district slate, which right now features 4 teams that went unbeaten in district play, including these 2 teams.
I don't know if you noticed, but I smiled a little bit when you mentioned it because 4-5A and 2-2A are 2 districts that we've just been excited about all year, and I get to kind of go out for the season opener in District 2-2A, and I'm excited for it. Sundown really has turned it on this year with Christian Huey at quarterback. They've just been phenomenal. They're doing really well. Sitting at 5-0, like you said, same as Abernathy, kind of seemed to pick up where they left off last year. Bryson Daly, Cole Carlisle are able to really get that offense going. And this might be something that we talked about earlier, but their defense. I think their defense is it's not exactly showing in the box score and everything, but I think they're playing really good in that element of the game.
100%. Although I would advertise this game as a quarterback duel between Christian Huey and Bryson Daly, 2 young players still who are putting up video game kind of numbers, especially in the touchdown category.
Yeah, it's, I think, very easy this game could turn into a quarterback duel. If either team gets shooken or one turnover happens, and I can definitely see this turning into a shootout. And I'm excited to get out and watch it and see how the Antelopes go up against the Roughnecks.
Exactly. You've got a Sundown team averaging 45.2 points per game. Abernathy's just a little behind 41.4. So guess what's going to make the difference in this game? We all know what it is. Turnovers. Turnovers.
It's always been turnovers. Another thing that might end up make or breaking one of these teams is the fact that Abernathy has seen these high-pressure situations where you look back to that post game where they won it very closely last year. Bryson Daly has been in a high-pressure situation in the playoffs even, against Post again, where he was able to, just really perform well. So if it comes down to the wire, this team has faced some adversity before and knows how to respond to that.
And with all those games covered, it's just time to pick them. I guess we'll just start off at the top with our Thursday game. And I think we kind of gave away where we're leaning on this one. But Estacado and Mountain View, 7 p.m. at Lowry Field on Thursday afternoon.
Yes, I'm going to go Estacado. I think they're just that better team right now. And, they've really hit a win streak, and they're just hot right now. And I don't think there's any slowing them down. Yeah,
I don't know if Estacado is going to lose another regular season game. I've got Estacado, and I've got this one by double digits.
Yeah, I could see that.
Especially considering Mountain View's got to travel all the way for this game. I don't think it's going to be a lot of fun for them. Okay, Lubbock High at Lubbock Cooper, 7:30 p.m. game at Pirate Stadium on Friday.
I think for Lubbock High to come out and win this one would be huge, but at the end of the day, I think Cooper is going to end up kind of with the victory in this one. It's going to be tough for Lubbock High to overcome a Lubbock Cooper team that has faced so much and has still produced, just like I said about Abernathy and everything.
Yeah, I think so too. The good news for both of these teams is they're coming in off 1 week rest. And I think that Lubbock High, more than any other area team, really needed this. See if they could add to their offensive line, because they had 2 non-offensive linemen as starters, just because their depth had been wiped out by injury. It'd be nice if they were able to add some of those guys back to the mix. And I think that they are going to have a tough time with Cooper's defense. And then another way around, Lubbock High has a lot to prove on defense after the past couple of weeks, and I think that a Brendan Mell-led attack, you think about Elijah Boyd at running back, I think that spells a lot of trouble for them.
Definitely. Having to move a running back and a wide receiver, I believe, over to the offensive line, that can hurt you sometimes, but we'll see how they respond. They had the week off, like you said. Maybe they were able to, if not fill in those positions or bring some people in that recovered. These two players that have had to step up into new roles now have a better understanding of what needs to get done at both positions.
And here's where I think we might split. Abilene Cooper at Monterey. It's the 8 p.m. game at Lowry Field following a 4 p.m. game.
I'm not sure if this is going to be our split or not, but in this one, Abilene Cooper is coming in as a very strong team. Like you said, their non-district schedule has been stacked. They've faced some really good opponents. Not saying anything against Monterey's, obviously, and I think Monterey is still very much a playoff contender. I think that they're going to make it and they're going to do really well, but I may go Abilene Cooper on this one.
I thought I knew you. I thought I knew you. I'm also going to go Abilene Cooper. I think that they've got a great body of work from their non-district, performed very well. I think that
maybe you converted me.
Right. I think that Monterey, you saw them run for 2 touchdowns last week, but they've had some issues with drops, and you don't see a receiving touchdown from that Stephenville game on the radar. And I think that for Monterey to put it together, and I think they will. I think they're going to make the playoffs and everything. I think that they need offensive production, more offensive production from their receivers. Abilene Cooper certainly gets that. Abilene Cooper also runs the ball really well. And I think I expect an offensive shootout, and I think that Abilene Cooper has a little bit more firepower in this game.
I agree.
All right, the big one, Sundown at Abernathy, 7:30 p.m. Friday, 5-0 teams.
Coming into this year, if you had told me that Sundown was going to be one of those teams that were going to be contending with Abernathy, I probably would not have foreseen that coming the way it has. I would have thought, at the end of the day, New Deal and Abernathy were going to be battling it out. But not only are those two teams coming into this undefeated, New Deal, Abernathy, Hale Center, they're all in the mix, and that just makes this all more interesting. But back a little bit more to the game, Sundown, Abernathy. I'm going Abernathy because I feel like they have the more seasoned athletes, and there's just a lot of excitement, and they're ready to go.
Yeah, you really took it away from me. I'm going Abernathy too for the exact same reason. I think they have a lot of experience. Brought back most of their players from last year's state semifinalist team. They've been in this position before. This is kind of uncharted territory for Sundown and their current players, and it's going to be really exciting. I think it could be a really good game. And Sundown is here. They played about the same caliber of non-district competition, although I'd say that Abernathy's game against Post was probably the premier of every team in this district. But other than that, they have similar offensive averages. But what does a 4-point spread between these teams really mean? When you look at offensively, Sundown with 45.2, Abernathy with 41.4. I don't think it makes a whole lot of difference. I think that they have the weapons, and I think that especially at home, Abernathy takes this game.
Yeah. I think whoever comes out on top of this game is going to be is already ready for the postseason, ready for the playoffs, is in well form. Whoever doesn't, I think is still going to make a huge run in that playoff position just because of having to go up against such a tough opponent in each other. Yeah,
really good group in District 2 2A Division 1. And that's going to do it for us. We really appreciate you guys tuning in tonight. We want to say again, this show has been brought to you by the University Medical Center and powered by AJ Media. I'm Mike Graham.
I'm Brian Navarrete.
We really appreciate you stopping by. Please be sure to visit LoneStarVarsity.com beginning tonight. We'll have some game previews. Our Week 7 podcast is already out. We had a great coaches show with Plainview's Ryan Rhodes to begin the week. So lots of good stuff and more to come. Thank you very much.